Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks. Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Gender and Development Studies, SOGDS, Certificate Program, Certificate in Gender Agriculture and Sustainable Development, CGAS, MGS-042 Gender Dynamics in Agriculture, Block-1 Gender in Agriculture, Unit-1 Gender Roles in Agriculture. 1.1 Introduction. In order to awaken the people, it is the woman who has to be awakened. Once she is on the move, the family moves, the village moves, the nation moves. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Women are an integral part of agricultural production systems in India and considered the backbone of the agricultural workforce. The key roles that the women play in agricultural development and their contributions in the field of agriculture and allied sectors, food and nutritional security, are now incredibly realized. Besides, women, comprising of the majority of agricultural laborers, are also putting their efforts in terms of physical output and quality and efficiency in improving the overall agricultural production system. However, though agricultural technology is gender neutral, it is not resource neutral, implying socioeconomic considerations in technology generation and transfer. Often, the role of women as producers of goods has been underestimated and considered a supplementary role rather than the leading role. This mystification has to be changed, and society needs to treat women as agents of change. In this unit, the status of women in the labor market, their role and contribution to agriculture, obstacles in the growth and specific schemes promoted by the government and other agencies to empower them in agriculture are discussed. This unit also brings to light and instills confidence among women in a male-dominated society, and their worth in the society. 1.2 Objectives. After studying this unit, you should be to discuss the women's contribution in agriculture, explain the role played by the women in agriculture, and examine the work participation rate, WPR. 1.3 Gender Roles. Gender roles are the roles played by men and women in both public and private spheres. Women's role in agriculture-related and allied activities well documented by the researchers. Women are responsible for half of the world's food production. They contribute from preparing land for cultivation to crop harvesting, livestock rearing, home gardening, fuel and fodder collection, and collecting minor forest produce for livelihood and food security. In Southeast Asia, women contribute 90% of their labor for rice cultivation. In Thailand, women are extensively engaged in agriculture as they carry out about 50% of the work involved in field crop cultivation, horticulture, plant protection, harvesting, and almost 80% in soil improvement, about 90% of the work in inland fishing, and almost all the work in food preservation and food processing, as well as in mulberry tree cultivation and silkworm raising. Women's knowledge of agriculture and food production is vast. As we can see in this unit, women contribute a range of activities in agriculture. As we have seen in Course 1, the discipline of gender studies clearly defines gender roles. Because of role differentiation in the society by men and women, their needs also differ. Integrating the needs of the men and women in the planning, policies, and program is essential. Gopalan ANSN. Saha, Gender in Agriculture, developed under APSES Research Scheme, Hyderabad, National Academy of Agricultural Research Management, August, 2003. The following case study will give you the overall picture of women's contribution to productive and reproductive work. Box 1. Let the spirits soar high. Aravand is a daily wage earner in Shahjahanpur and has his wife and 4 children to look after. To supplement his meager income, he occasionally sells vegetables in the open market after procuring from the mandi. Recently, he planted potatoes on his 2 bighas of land. Everything seemed to be in order till he fell ill a couple of months ago. The onus of running the household fell on his wife, Sukhdevi. Her workload increased manifold. From daily chores to tending a patient at home, from feeding children to working in the field, the list of diverse work she performs during the day is back-breaking and exhausting. Rather than give up, she took the challenge in her stride. Taking advice from her ailing husband, she will get the desired work done at the farm with the help of hired labor. Adopted from Khandelwal, Ashok and Shipradio, 2013. 1.4 Women labor. As per the census 2011, India's population is estimated at 1.21 billion. The distribution of the country's population in rural and urban areas was found to be 833.5 and 177.1 million, respectively. Thus, the census in 2011 reflected an increase of 181.96 million persons over the population in the 2001 census. Out of these 181.96 million persons added to the population in 2001, the increase in the male population was 90.97 million as against 90.99 million in the female population. This implies an overall growth rate of the female population, 18.3%, which is higher than males, 17.1%. Subsequently, the sex ratio had also slightly improved in 2011, i.e., from 933 to 943, than the 2001 census. While there has been an appreciable gain in the overall sex ratio, the decline in child sex ratio, 0 to 6 years, by 13 points from 927 in 2001 to 914 in 2011 is a serious concern. Such recent changes in the population dynamics are significant to appreciate the role of women. Women within the family combine and play an indispensable role in agriculture and become more responsible in improving the quality of life, especially in rural areas. However, their contributions often remain concealed and need to be adequately exposed. During the census 2011, few additional details are also made available in the dimensions related to the spread of workers in the total population in rural and urban areas. Table 1. Table 1.1. Number of workers in India, Census 2011. Look at the screen. Note, WPR, work participation rate is the number of workers per 100 populations. Out of the total population of 1,210 million persons, the rural population was 833.5 million, 68.86%, and the remaining 377 million persons, 31.14%, live in urban areas. Thus, almost two-thirds of the population is still found in rural areas. Among the total workers of 481.7 million, the number of workers in rural areas was about 348 million, 72.37%, and the remaining 133 million workers, 27.63%, were in urban areas. The work participation rate was about 42% in rural areas as against only 35.3% in urban areas. The details of the work participation rate between men and women, Table 2, indicate that the work participation was higher in men than in women. Comparatively, the participation rate has declined among women in 2011 against the 2011 census period. Table 1.2 Work participation rate, percent, between male and female population. What screen? The above changes must be interpreted very carefully. Given a rise in the country's population in the country, there is a slight decline in the work participation rate. That decline is only because of a reduction in marginal workers. The details could be well understood by also looking at Table 3.1 below. Table 1.3, Type of workers in India and their percentage share. In terms of workers, the workforce is further classified as main workers and marginal workers. Among the women population, as per the 2011 census, women main workers constituted about 60%, and the remaining 40% were classified as marginal workers. Comparing the year 2011 census data with 2001 data, there is a 2.3% increase in women main workers, and the men's main workers showed a 5% decline. Thus women are gradually being recognized as main workers, which is a good sign of development. 1.5 Role of women in agriculture. Agriculture in India still plays a primary role in ensuring food and livelihood security and sustainable economic development. This sector provides both direct and indirect employment opportunities. However, the sector is confronted with many challenges like the degradation of natural resources, inadequate availability of labor, particularly during peak agricultural operations, vulnerability to erratic monsoons leading to unemployment, and severe pressure on land due to increasing population and consequent demand. Higher levels of food production. Besides, the contribution of agriculture to the gross domestic product, GDP, at constant price declined to 14.1%, 2012-13, from 53.71% during the 1950s, Government of India, 2012. Despite these unfavorable developments, this sector still provides livelihood to the majority of the population. In terms of sectoral shares in employment, agriculture share in employment declined from 59.9% at the beginning of the decade to 53.2% at the end of the decade. However, this figure is still very high compared with the share of agriculture in other countries in the region. Growth in agriculture, vis-a-vis in crops, depends on expanding area and increased productivity of cultivable land through technological interventions. Considering the various limitations in expanding the available cultivable area, long-term growth in agriculture is possible only by practicing more self-sustained technologies, not jeopardizing the strength in the country. Such progress is unfortunately seen with more replacement of labor, especially men. The work activities of women in rural areas revolve around land and other resources. In addition to this, every family household must perform minimum household activities, chores, undertaken mainly by the women in the family. In any rural household, agricultural activity is considered the most important because it fetches direct monetary benefits besides creating employment. In most agricultural households, the agricultural production depends entirely on the use of family labor, predominantly women. In many rural households, women are also considered in the decision-making process towards harvesting crops, purchasing and selling animals, choosing crop in specific land, and even constructing farm buildings. Among the various cultivation operations, field operations like sowing or transplanting, weeding, harvesting, etc., involve engaging more women laborers. For instance, the engagement of women agricultural labor in rice production activities has been found high in transplanting, weeding and harvesting. We will elaborately look into women's contribution to the production process. Pre-sowing activities consist of land preparation, compost and farmyard manure, seed selection, seed preparation, seed management, seed sowing, nursery preparation, sowing seeds in the nursery, nursery maintenance, and transplanting seedlings from nursery to main farm. Fertilizer application. If we look into all these activities of pre-sowing, women contribute most of the activities, except plowing of lands. Once the pre-sowing activities are over, women's contribution to post-sowing activities like weeding, scaring off birds, preparation of manure, hybridization of cotton and sunflower and handpicking of worms and insects are also made by the women. By looking at the above activities, one can quickly conclude that female labor in agriculture is very significant. Not only in pre-sowing and post-sowing periods, but female labor activities are intense during harvest also. It starts with harvesting crop. After harvesting the crop, women carry the bundles of harvested crops to the thrashing floor. In the post-harvest process, women contribute numerous activities to make the harvested crop into the final one. It comprises the preparation of thrashing floor, hand threshing, threshing with the machine, winnowing, grading, processing and vending of agricultural commodities, care of storage structure, separating seeds, drying and clearing of produce, treating seeds and grains. Box 1. Case Study 1. Women from the state of Kerala developed indigenous methods of selecting and preserving seeds for sowing next season. The harvested grains set apart the required quantity of seed material that will be sufficient for next season's planting of sowing. The grains are cleaned carefully by winnowing. During winnowing process, the off-color, undersized and chaffy grains are segregated and removed. The selected grains are sun-dried for 2 or 3 days. Once they are convinced that the moisture content reduced to a sufficient level in the grains, they store them as seeds in mud container. A few women also select their seeds by collecting healthy ear heads. For example, ragi ear heads with well-formed grains are selected during the harvest and kept aside as seed materials for subsequent seasons' planting. Women have devised scientific and straightforward methods for seed preservation for sowing next seasons. For almost all foods grains, whether cereals or minor millets, the selection and preservation methods are similar. Only Dolichos spp and red gram are coated with red clay and dried under the hot sun for 2-3 days. The red clay, according to the women, acts as a pest repellent. The seeds of all grains are under the sun once in a while on a full moon day. They confidentially say that the seed viability will not be affected even for 2 years if they are well dried and kept in airtight containers. The seeds of the vegetables are mixed with burnt ash and then sun-dried. Fruits of few vegetables are left on the plant itself to get fully ripened. Certain vegetable seeds are kept on the rooftops to dry the seeds. Women also grow vegetables in a small piece of lanes for household consumption. Seeds are considered as sacred. The seeds are generally kept in the house's attic, where gods and goddess pictures are kept. Women do not touch the seeds during menstruation. Box 2 Voices from the field. 1. Land, like other productive assets, is an opportunity for change. It is a way to access other resources, such as water, seeds, new technologies and bank loans. 2. When we earn our own money, we are less frightened of arguing with our husbands on spending decisions. 3. If our husbands want us to eat, then we eat. It depends on them. If the land were in my name, he would no longer beat me, and he would take care of the children as well. 1.6 Obstacles in women growth and empowerment. One of the means of reducing drudgery in agricultural operation is to mechanize. Castillo 1977-3 argued that even such mechanization favors operations performed mainly by men while the other operations were still operated by women manually. This adds the burden to women labor while they work both on farm and off farm. Much of the technological advancements had created more employment for men and even displaced female labor in agriculture. Moreover, the structural changes in the cropping pattern, for instance, i.e., from food crops to cash crops and mechanized inputs in farms, have resulted in the withdrawal of the female agricultural labor force and have created an employment structure more biased towards the male labor force. Besides, studies have shown that the female labor absorption capacity of crops has significantly declined due to a shift in cropping pattern, i.e., from paddy to coconut or rubber in states like Kerala. It is found that the shift in 1 acre of paddy to coconut could result in a decline in female employment by 43 human days. One of the significant obstacles faced by farm women is also lack of improvised knowledge on farming. 1.7 More work, less pay or no pay. Women are almost half of the adult population. They constitute 1/3 of the labor force but consume 2/3 of the world's working hours and yet earn only 1/10 of the income and own only 1% of world property. United Nations, 1975. 4. Female hourly wage rates in agriculture vary from 50% to 75% of male rates and are insufficient to overcome absolute poverty. Planning Commission. Most of the works performed by women in agriculture on family enterprises are unpaid work. Though the work participation rate is an important measure to assess the gaps and verify whether it has narrowed down between genders, the remuneration and advancement gap between male and female workers still exist, and always women workers are the losers. In various estimates on the cost of crops, both men and women labor wages, often disparity persists in wage rate, were considered, and man equivalent is estimated based on the wage rate. In such estimates, since the wage rate paid for women for equal hours of work is less than men, 1 person day is equated with 1/2 times the work of women. To remove such disparity, the hours of work has to be considered while fixing the wages irrespective of gender. 1.8 Women and agro-biodiversity conservation. The concept of biodiversity vis-a-vis agro-biodiversity is not new. Agro-biodiversity encompasses the variety and variability of animals, plants, and microorganisms necessary for sustaining critical functions of the agro-ecosystem, including its structure and processes for, and in support of, food production. Food Security, FAO, 1999. Loss of agro-biodiversity is often portrayed mainly as an environmental problem rather than social, political and economic reasons. Moreover, among the various reasons, human activity plays a significant role as it can shape, conserve and protect diversity. A farm in the Indian situation earlier was a mix of many diversified enterprises along with the crop. This traditional agricultural practice and production environment could balance land utilization, workforce usage, soil health retention, risk-bearing, etc. However, due to intensive monocropping in specialized crop cultivation, much of these farm diversities have been lost in modern agriculture. For instance, looking at the macro level, among the selection of food grain crops, domination of major cereal crops in the cropping pattern could be seen at the loss of crops like jowar, bajra etc. Table 1.5. Table 1.5. Change in cropping pattern index base 1965-66 equals 100. Look at the screen. Taken 1965-66 as base year, the cropping pattern index was estimated in 3 time periods: early Green Revolution, and post-Green Revolution. Among the cereals crops, the area index under wheat, 100.80 to 188.08, and maize, 104.23 to 142.95, had increased, and the traditional food grain crops like jowar, bajra and other minor cereals have lost their area. The overall shift in the area towards non-food grains is also observed, as the overall food grain index moved from 99 in 1966-67 to 88.30 in 2010-11. The above changes have some severe implications, as there exists a possibility of losing crop diversity. This could also lead to monoculture and dominance of only a few cereal crops, and even genetic erosion of land races, or loss of agrobiodiversity, of few traditional crops, Nortyal and Kichele, 2006, and Makuri, ed.al, 1997. Moreover, the cultivation of traditional crops and land races requires a clear understanding of the socioeconomic characteristics of farmers, Prakash et al., 2004. Sometimes, payment for agrobiodiversity conservation services, PACS, may be essential as market-based instruments that increase personal benefits, Narloch et al. Collective action institutions are significant for technology transfer in agriculture and natural resource management among smallholders and resource-dependent communities, Mahendra Dev, 2012. Another aspect of biodiversity is the management of insects, especially beneficial insects in agriculture. Many insect species are becoming extinct because of habitat loss, injudicious application of pesticide and climate change, Murugan, 2006. Biodiversity, including insects, should be preserved or even enhanced for its own sake and ecological services. Like natural control of crop pests, Nordic et al., 2007. In a study conducted between mixed farming and sole crop farming in food production, the mixed crop cultivation showed a greater species richness in terms of birds and insects. Mixed cropping also proved economically, environmentally and ecologically sound than sole cropping to the farmers and facilitated sustainable crop yield, Raghavendra et al., 2010. 1.9 Cafeteria for Women in Agriculture. Mainstreaming gender is an ASSANTIEL component of the Policy Framework for Agricultural Extension, PFAE, developed by the Ministry of Agriculture, Government of India. The center developed a cafeteria for the Ministry of Agriculture for offering it to states to guide the development of new programs for women in agriculture. New programs for women in agriculture should be developed based on the following principles identified in the cafeteria. New programs that are proposed should expand their definition of agriculture beyond crop production and should be based on site-specific needs assessments. New projects that are proposed should build on groups, networks, organizational capacity and resources already in place and functioning from existing project initiatives and should build on lessons from existing projects. Apart from extending agricultural technologies on production and post-harvest to women farmers, new programs should concentrate their efforts in providing crucial backup services and support, backward and forward linkages, to help women groups to successfully adopt new techniques, crops and enterprises to increase their incomes and employment opportunities. New programs should be planned with adequate resources for mobilizing women, forming groups, improving capacity and capability in technical, organizational and commercial, business, micro-enterprises, sectors and support systems, credit, raw material and markets. These should be prepared jointly in consultations with other organizations, public, private and voluntary, that can potentially complement and supplement the efforts of the State Department of Agriculture. The following technological options are also available for women to reduce drudgery. Technological option for farm women. Look at the screen. 1.10 Let US Sum UP. The importance and need for human resources management in agricultural development has been well recognized in almost all the agriculture-dominant countries. Such awareness has made it possible to bring prominence to the role of women in increasing food production and the improvement of rural households. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.